All right, Crim 1, let's move on with Chapter 6, which is policing operations. So we're going to get down more to the kind of nitty-gritty of what it is that police officers do and how the organizations are formed. So let's go next. Come on. There we go. Policing roles. If you were just to think about it, what would you say that police officers are responsible for in our community? And here's kind of a short list of a few things that are common for police officers to be responsible for. Maintaining order. Think protest or something like that might take place in your city. In order to keep the protest from becoming either violent or out of control, a lot of times police will be involved in order to maintain the order and peacekeeping. It also mentions loitering here, can protect the quality of life by making sure the community is safe as far as loitering is concerned. Clearing, oh good Lord, my dogs are gonna fight now. Then we have law enforcement responsibilities or roles that police officers are obviously in charge of. It is the responsibility of police to maintain order and enforce laws within the community. And then service activities, non-law enforcement activities performed by officers on an as-needed basis. And to be honest, the vast majority of a police officer's day, generally speaking, is going to consist of these service activities. Things like acting as a mediator for parent exchange, if there's divorced parents that are trying to share custody of their kids, writing fix-it tickets, signing off on fix-it tickets, things like that. Most of their day, they're not running around arresting people. So kind of interesting. Then we have policing strategies. Police departments use many different means of maintaining the peace, of enforcing the laws. And these are just a couple of those different strategies they use. Preventative patrol. This is when the police department is out and about on the streets and very visible. There are probably certain parts of town where you'll notice a lot more police officers than others. You see them in the Tower District doing a lot of preventative patrol. So they're not necessarily responding to calls for service. They're just out in the community to be seen, to be visible, and to give the community a sense of feeling safe. The hope also is then that criminals will see them as well and decide not to commit crimes while there's a police officer standing, 10 feet away. Problem-oriented policing is another strategy. This is something, we have a great example in Fresno of problem-oriented policing because one of the main problems in Fresno, and at some point within the last, 10, 15 years, Fresno was the vehicle theft capital of the state. Maybe even the country, but I'm afraid I might be exaggerating if I say that. But they were inundated with vehicle theft. There were just so many cars getting stolen, and the city of Fresno and the police department was getting a lot of grief because the crime rate as far as vehicle theft is concerned just kept rising. So what did they decide to do? They thought about some different ways to address vehicle theft specifically. It was a problem-oriented response. So they did things like put together an entire unit called Career CCAT, Career Criminal Auto Theft. So all they do all day is drive around the city of Fresno and look for either vehicle theft in progress or chase down stolen vehicles when they see them on the streets. So that's an example of problem-oriented policing. Community-oriented policing is a strategy where police departments rely heavily on the community to be successful. And I would say that Fresno PD, again, I know I'm using them as an example a lot, but I believe, if I remember correctly, hearing that recently almost all of the murders that had taken place in the city of Fresno had been solved. Police work alone does not solve those cases. The community has to step in order for the police to be successful in maintaining a safe community. So this is what community-oriented policing really is. You'll see social media posts, things on TV, police are asking for help in such and such case. So that community-oriented policing is really important in solving a lot of crimes. How do they do that? Police community reciprocity. I know this slide is weird looking, but that little bullet down at the bottom refers to the community-oriented policing. Decentralization of command. What they did, again, Fresno PD, is opened up a bunch of substations throughout town. So if you need to go to the Fresno Police Department, you don't have to drive all the way downtown. There's usually a police department station in your neighborhood somewhere. And foot patrol and civilianization. So foot patrol, we see that again a lot in the Tower District, in neighborhoods where it's easy to get from point A to point B while walking. Now, Fresno's a big, large community, so foot patrol isn't always the best idea in a city like Fresno, but think New York City. You'd be probably faster responding to a call in New York City by foot than you would by car. And then civilianization. These are those civilian patrol groups where people get involved with the agencies and learn more about how every police agency works. This is another strategy, policing strategy, aggressive order maintenance. This is a tough one because it can really turn off the public and make the public not happy. But police activities that address non-criminal or minor offenses that affect residents' quality of life. So think about a person who is jaywalking getting a ticket. The person who is jaywalking is going to say, don't the police officers have better things to do? Right? Right. And however, at the same time, it must be known and made aware that people in the city of Fresno are getting hit by vehicles all the time, hit and killed by vehicles all the time because people are randomly jaywalking and there's really no threat of enforcement of that law. So aggressive order maintenance. I would consider that like nitpicking, kind of little nitpicky things that police, laws that police enforce in order to keep the community safe, even though the community doesn't really like it. Then we get to the broken windows theory. This is a theory where the belief is if neighborhoods, homes, homeowners, residents in certain neighborhoods do not take care of their property, and let's say they have graffiti on the side of their house, they have broken windows in the front, their car is parked up on the lawn, the yard isn't being maintained, that gives the sense to others in the community that the person living there doesn't care. And if they don't care about their home or their property, why should criminals care? I hope that makes sense. But that's basically the concept of the broken windows theory. And I had a case once where I had a young man who was on probation for causing a lot of damage. What he had done is gone to a junkyard, where they have old vehicles where pick apart, pick and pull, I don't know what they're called, but he went to this pick apart and was shooting out windshields with his BB gun, pellet gun, I don't know, some sort of a gun that wasn't like an actual gun. Anyways, he caused thousands of dollars worth of damage, but his point was it's just a junkyard, so who cares? Perfect example of the broken windows theory. Police departments are typically broken up into line staff and support staff. Line staff are going to typically be your peace officers, your sworn peace officers. Those are detectives. Those are sergeants. Those are lieutenants, captains, patrol officers, traffic officers, your beat cops, all that kind of stuff. Those are your line staff. Then you have support staff. Support staff is usually people like records clerks, dispatchers, CSI, maybe a custodial type of person as well. And they could be things like community service officers, but they are non-sworn personnel. If you are sworn personnel, you are a peace officer. If you are non-sworn, you are not an actual peace officer. Then your book gives some descriptions of different types of officers. The rookie officer, that's obviously a new officer. Rookie officers go through training with a field training officer. They call them FTOs. They typically will ride along with the field training officer for at least 6 months. So, and they learn every single day a little bit more on the job type of stuff. They are actual peace officers. They're just new peace officers. You have a patrol officer. These are the officers that are first to respond to calls for service, typically your first responders. So let's say there was a murder at a church, and the first officers to get there are going to be the patrol officers, and they will start the investigation. They're going to start by gathering information. They're going to start by securing the scene, and because it was a murder, that case is probably going to get sent on to a homicide detective for further investigation. So the patrol officer gets it started and then goes back out on the beat and patrols some more. Other sworn and non-sworn, traffic officers and control, these are actually mostly non-sworn that are on this slide, but traffic officers, and by traffic officers, right here, I'm talking about just people who control traffic. I'm not talking about a motorcycle cop who's pulling you over, because that is indeed a sworn officer. But community service officers can often go out and direct traffic, control traffic. Communications and technology, you have your dispatchers, ridiculously important job, super stressful, very difficult job, because I did it for a while, but ridiculously important. Then you might have someone in kind of a holding cell type of area. A lot of law enforcement agencies do have a one little holding cell or a couple holding cells at their department before they take people to jail. So people would have to work in there. And then you have your forensics or criminalists. These are kind of your CSI people. They are also not sworn officers. Those are going to be either ID techs, usually ID techs or CSIs, but they're not peace officers. The police organization, chain of command is a ridiculously important thing in a police agency. And by chain of command, the shape of the organization is like a pyramid. Up at the top, you just have a few people. Those are going to be your chief, your deputy chiefs, your lieutenants, your captains, your administrators. And then down at the bottom of that pyramid, you're going to have a lot of line staff. Those are usually going to be just your peace officers. So it's important that if there is an issue and you want it to be addressed within your agency, you report that issue to your immediate supervisor. You don't go from line staff, a regular old police officer, and file your complaint with the chief. That's not the way it goes. Chain of command is very, very important. It also includes this concept of unity of command, the requirement that each individual within the organization reports directly to a single individual higher in the chain of command. So if I am the deputy chief, the next person in line for me to complain to have an issue, to report an issue to, would be the chief, because he's the only one that would be higher than me. But generally speaking, If you are a line staff, a regular patrol officer, you're going to report any issues to your sergeant. Span of control is the extent of an individual's authority or number of individuals that one person is responsible for overseeing. So, for example, I used to work with the campus officer, the campus police officer over at Hoover High School. So there was a sergeant who was assigned over all of the campus police officers. So his span of control included all of the officers that were in the campus unit that were assigned to different schools. So I hope that makes sense. What factors impact how police resources are deployed? Number one is always money. The budget is probably the most important factor that police administrators have to deal with. If it's a bad year and the state of California, federal government does not have, or county or city does not have extra money for law enforcement, maybe they're not going to be able to hire that year. Maybe they won't be able to backfill some of their retirees' positions. Maybe some programs are going to get cut because they simply can't afford to do it. So money is always probably the most important thing. Then we have evidence-based policing, the use of best available research on the outcome of police work to implement guidelines and evaluate agencies, units, and officers. So this is a more scientific approach where police agencies are looking at actual research and data and figuring out the best way to use their resources based on these evidence-based data. I hope that, yeah. Technological resources. Police agencies are now, a lot of them are using drones, which are super helpful because you can't always have the police helicopter about and available every time you need someone to go look down from above for information. Then we have crime mapping. Crime mapping is simply, if you can imagine, okay, I had to take a quick break there. Crime mapping, I think, is where we were. Crime mapping. Okay, so if you can imagine a giant map of the city of Fresno on a wall, and every time a crime is committed in a location, a little pin is put in that spot. So that map would give us all an idea of how much crime is being committed in what area and what type of crime if you were labeling it. So crime mapping is just, it's really important for law enforcement agencies to have crime mapping and use it, but it also can help them to better delegate their resources. A hotspot, as you can guess, is an area of concentrated crime or higher risk of victimization. So if you're looking at that crime map and there's a whole bunch of little pins in one area, that's going to be a hotspot. That's a place where a lot of crime is taking place. Predictive policing, taking data from a wide array of sources, analyzing them, and using the results to anticipate, prevent, and respond more efficiently to future crime. I don't know how many agencies are really using the predictive policing yet, but I do see that as something that will be pretty important in the future. I think that's the last slide. Is it? I don't know. Oh, I lied. One more. Police officers on a daily basis deal with all kinds of different people. And this is one of these issues that a lot of people will say, well, how come the officers didn't have more training in dealing with mental health issues? How come they didn't have more training in dealing with cultural and language barriers? How come they didn't have more training? And I can tell you it's because there's only so many hours in the day, and it's nearly impossible for a police officer to be trained for every single situation they come across. But here are just some different types of diverse populations they might deal with. The elderly being abused or neglected. Of course, Adult Protective Services is an agency that's around to assist the elderly. People with physical or developmental disabilities. Again, like I mentioned before, it's very difficult to train officers to learn to deal with every single type of physical or developmental disability. I remember in training one year, while I was with the probation department, they gave us a scenario where we had to handcuff somebody with one arm. And no, he did not have belt loops. They didn't make it easy on us. So anyways, you just gotta use your best common sense and deal with all kinds of different people with mental disabilities. This is sad because we see so many people with mental health problems getting involved in violence with police, sometimes being killed by police. It's very, very difficult. The homeless, this is another population where, you don't want to be a jerk and make all the homeless people move, but at the same time, if you own a business or homeless people are camping out at your house, that can make the community not feel particularly safe. Fresno is a city with a lot of diversity. So cultural and language barriers are some pretty significant issues in Fresno. A good way to handle that is to hire police officers who look like your community. And then you have rural communities. The city of Fresno is not really a rural community, but if you think the Fresno County Sheriff's Department, they're going out to Prather and Dunlap and all these other very rural communities where life is a little bit different. So I think that's all. Whew, that was a long one.